Hello everyone, Dark of All Trades here, and in this video I'm going to try something a little different than what I've been normally doing. In this case, I'm going to admit something that I haven't formally done yet, although people who watch my philosophy videos probably have already guessed. I am an atheist. Okay? It's out there, the whole world knows. Any job limitations that I have from that are just more proof that I should be out, and more people should be out and outspoken atheists. So, in this situation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start addressing different questions to atheists. In this video, I'm going to tackle Capturing Christianity's 3 questions for atheists. Now, as this is my first video of this kind, I'm not sure how this is going to go. I'm going to do my best. I do all my editing. And so let's just jump into it, shall we?
First question is, do you believe that God does not exist? So, you kind of either have that belief or you don't. You either believe that God does not exist or you don't.
Do I believe that God does not exist? This depends on what you mean by God. Knowing that Cameron is a Christian, I assume he's referring to some form of the Christian God. So that is generally to what I'm going to respond. There are other descriptions, such as a deistic God and other unfalsifiable positions. I can touch on that if there's interest, but for now, I'm going to try to stick to the point. I'm also differentiating that sometimes conflated position of not believing from believing not. Some atheists do not believe in a God, but that doesn't mean that they believe that a God does not exist. These are 2 different positions that typically fall under the umbrella term of atheist. One can be not convinced that a God exists, but still not say that a God does not exist. That is the I don't know position. I actively believe that the Christian God does not exist. So the answer to Cameron's question is yes.
Do you believe in evidentialism? Evidentialism is the view that your beliefs ought to be proportioned to the evidence. You shouldn't just believe something without evidence.
Do I believe in evidentialism? Taking Cameron's definition of evidentialism as the view that beliefs ought to be proportioned to the evidence and that you shouldn't believe something without evidence, then yes, I believe in evidentialism. I believe that any belief requires an amount of evidence proportionate to the belief claim.
And third question is, what is your evidence that justifies your belief that God does not exist?
Before I begin this section, there's something that I need to address that I touched on before. Some people, especially in the comment section of his video, assert that there is a shifting a burden of proof in this question. This isn't the case. An assertion that something does not exist is a positive claim, and therefore adopts a burden of proof. We can get into the semantics games of the difference between has been shown to exist, has been shown to not exist, and has not been shown to exist. Either something exists or it doesn't, that is a dichotomy. But when talking about belief, it is not limited to that. You either accept that something exists, accept that it doesn't exist, or take the I don't know position. I had to get that out of the way, as that is something that people seem to have an issue with understanding. In this situation, he is specifically referring to people who take the positive position that God does not exist. So, what is my evidence that justifies my belief that God does not exist? Evidence for the belief that something does not exist can be tricky, but is often easier than we think. We can get really into the snooty philosophical aspects and stand around regressing every truth claim back till we hit the problem of hard solipsism, but that is not something I'm interested in. I assume reality exists, and that generally, what I perceive as real is such when collaborated with others to make those determinations. So, what is the evidence for the lack of something? Russell's teapot is a good thought experiment to show this. The same with Sagan's dragon in the garage. Some people say, you can't prove a negative. For the most part, they may be correct, or nearly correct. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, I hear people say. This may often be correct, but to quote Matt Dillahunty, absence of evidence is evidence of absence when evidence would be expected. Let's take a look into an example. What's the evidence that there's not an elephant in my bathtub? In order to begin with this, we have to define terms. So for this situation, I'm going to use the normative meanings for elephant and bathtub here. First, we need to have clear criteria. We ask, what could we do to show that there is an elephant in my bathtub? Ask anyone this question and you'll most likely get something along the lines of, we could go check. Visual confirmation. Multiple people confirming the same thing visually is a very good start. So, we go to my bathroom. We look in my bathtub and see no elephant. If both you and I go check and report no sighting of an elephant, this is generally sufficient evidence to warrant a conclusion that there is no elephant in my bathtub. If you agree with that, then we're done. We have proved a negative. If not, we could take the next step. Could we fill the bathtub with dirt? If we can, and there's no elephant-shaped gaps appearing, not even an elephant leg appearing in the dirt, no elephant footprints in the dirt, then we have another point of data to show that there is not an elephant in my bathtub. So in this example, it's about a physical object existing in a physical location. We have solid criteria, so let's take a look at this and compare it to a god. We need to ask the same questions as the previous example. What is meant by God? What are the criteria for showing that this God does exist? That is this God falsifiable? I'm going to start with the third question because the third question is very important. If the God is unfalsifiable, then it is not a proposition that we can investigate in any meaningful way. If it can't be shown to exist or not exist, then I'm not interested. Initially, the thought is that for something to exist, it must manifest in reality in some detectable way. Until something has been shown to manifest in reality in some way, we consider it to not exist. To paraphrase Tracy Harris with her dice analogy, what is the difference between nothing and something that has not been shown to manifest in reality? So, the answer to these questions seem to be, for the first one, Cameron is referring to the Christian God. That is, some form of the God of the Bible, Old and New Testament. A perfect, or as close to possible, being who made the universe for and loves all humans, etc. I'm not entirely sure of his exact definition, so this is a difficult question to answer to his satisfaction. To respond, Cameron, present your God. Show how this God manifests in reality and we can address that. Until then, I can only address the concept. As for the second question, general criteria for showing a God exists is limited to arguments from personal anecdotes, that is, stories that a person experienced something which we cannot verify if they actually happened or not, that is, they're unfalsifiable, or arguments that include some number of logical fallacies. So what would we expect would be the case if a God created the universe? Would a perfect being make a universe like it is? One criteria would be that I, a simple, fallible, mortal human, would not be able to find any way to improve on anything in the universe. We can dive into the term improve and say improve for who, but that starts to get back into the regression, back to the problem of hard solipsism again, and again, I'm not interested in doing that. Of course, any one of us could come up with ways to make things even slightly better for everyone. We could reduce violence by developing a mechanism in the human body that makes people physically ill if they commit an unjustified malicious act of violence. Before anyone brings it up, no, it would not violate the idea of free will, as the person would still be able to take the action, but there would be increased physical consequences. This wouldn't stop all violence, but it would likely reduce the amount. There, I've already come up with a concept that would have made things just a little better overall. With that, we have filled the bathtub and shown that no elephant, by that definition, is in the bathtub. I am certain that any number of people can and will come up with any number of ways to improve on humanity even slightly. We have been doing it for years. Heck, the invention of glasses to help people see better is an improvement. Take literally anything beneficial from medicine and remove the need for that, and you've already improved on what they would call the creation. Now, I already hear apologists saying, well, how do you know that God doesn't have a reason for doing that? And truth be told, besides a God not existing, I don't know. But if a God had a reason for not making things better, and instead making things exactly like we would expect if a God didn't create things and evolution occurred as we'd expect, then it should be presented, and we can address it then. Until then, let's avoid any logical fallacies wherever possible. So what do you guys think of this? I've been really wanting to do response videos for a while now, and here's my first one. I thought I'd touch on something a little simple that I can get into kind of a long-winded explanation for, way more than a lot of people actually need. If you think I'm not right, leave a comment, let me know. I'd love to engage with these kinds of things. If you think I'm right, leave a comment below telling me how awesome I really am. It's great. I love those kinds of things. If you have any questions, let me know. I love answering questions. If you want to see more of this, let me know. Leave a comment. I love reading those kinds of things. As always, like and subscribe, ring the bell. That really does help the YouTube algorithm. Send me love, and I will see you next time.